Good afternoon, everybody. We enjoying LASCON? I'm sorry, I hate to do this. It's show cliche. Are we enjoying LASCON? That was actually lower, I think, than the. Let's have a seat. So originally I had a talk set up to do, maybe you saw it, maybe you're confused about what we're doing here, because originally in the schedule there was a talk I was doing about password cracking. And I looked at the talk and looked at the slides and thought, well, I can either make that really general and not be useful, or make it really specific and not get past my legal department at work. So instead, I thought it'd be more useful to have a panel discussion about red teaming and pen testing. So I'm just going to start this off, and it's going to be very laid back. And if you have questions or comments, raise your hand, and we'll, address them during the thing. So I'm just going to go around here and have people introduce themselves. And what I want to know is what your name is, what you do, and how long you've been doing what we call pen testing or hacking, or what you want to call it. I'll start with you.
Dustin Dykes. I'm the founder of the Dallas Hackers Association. I'm better known there by the handle Wirefall. And I've been getting paid to do penetration testing since about 1996.
Hey, I'm Jay Gore. It's a handle, but that's how everyone knows me. I help run Austin 2600, Longhorn Lockpicking. I work for the University of Texas at Austin, where I'm staff there, do regular pen testing stuff, and also we teach a class there on teaching students how to pen test.
Hello, my name's Matt Pardo. I run B-Sides Austin, and I have been hacking since probably 1990, BitNet, DARPA, that kind of thing. So back in the early days, and have continued for many, many years. So.
Hi, I'm Carlotta Binder, and I'm a security associate at Rapid7. I've only been being paid to pen test for the past 6 months.
Hi, my name is Allison Gray. I work at General Motors. I would say officially I've been working in application security a little bit over a year, and also delved in some app testing before that.
So I'm David Hughes. I work at General Motors as a red team lead. I've been doing pen testing and stuff for since about 2005. Doing security before that, and mostly IT work before that. A lot of sysadmin and server admin stuff. So one reason I want to just say some things about some of these people. I actually just met you for the first time today, and I heard some things about you that are really cool. So no, Jay Gore's been in for a while. He's of course the lockpick guy. And I remember one time I was doing a talk, and I was talking about burnout, and I was asking people, what are some things you can do that aren't from a screen, not related to what you do, that you could do as a hobby, so you wouldn't burn out, and he yelled out lockpicking. So, which is kind of related actually, but yeah. Exactly. I work with Matt on a lot of different projects, known him for quite a while. I just met Carlotta for the first time, and Allison down here I work with at GM, and one of the reasons I asked her is because she is so eager and wanting to learn and contribute that I just feel like this would be kind of like a good reward for that, or punishment in her mind. So I'm going to start with an icebreaker question though, just to kind of get things kind of loosened up a little bit. Describe for me your favorite hacker movie or television show. And if you don't have an answer, you don't have to say anything, but go ahead. Jay Gore, by the way, is a movie buff, so maybe he'd have some, yeah.
Good? Yeah, I watch way too many movies. I basically live at Alamo Drafthouse. I love all hacker movies, but I think I have to go with war games.
I would say my favorite is Sneakers, since it includes hacking, telephony, which you can't do as much anymore, although digitally you can do some stuff. But it also includes some cryptology, which is pretty cool.
I was actually going to pick Snickers as well.
So for me, it's more of a TV show. I love Mr. Robot. Probably because, one, it's mostly realistic, but it's also really gritty and crazy. So, yeah.
I have to say that I agree with all of you guys as far as the movies. I love all those movies. I like the movie Hackers, actually. That's a fun movie. It's a very beloved movie. Those of you who hate on Hackers, you secretly love it. You do. You really do. Deep inside, you love the show. And you know what? I have to give a little bit of credit toward Swordfish. Even though it has the most painful hacking scene of all times. How many have seen the Hugh Jackman hacking scene in Swordfish? Google that, find it on YouTube, and watch it. And you'll not want to watch it ever again, but it's really painful. It's really painful. Cool. And Mr. Robot, you know, I think maybe except for the scene where she's dropping USB drives in the parking lot of the police station in handfuls, in piles, that doesn't look suspicious.
And she downloaded the script from Rapid 9. No, my favorite was, because it got me into it, was War Games. But one of my favorite reviews of a hacking or computer security show was CSI Cyber. There was a hacking collective that was live tweeting it, so their tagline was, "So you don't have to watch it." And one of the comments was, "This makes Swordfish look like a documentary."
I really wanted to love CSI Cyber. I tried so hard to love that show, and I just could not. It was just painful. After I saw that, actually, I was watching the opening sequence of that. You know, they talk about the dark web, and this is. My wife saw that, and she said, "Can you get to the dark web?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Would you show me?" I go, "Okay." So I took her to my computer, and I used a proxy, and then I got the tour, and I showed her some of the sites. She goes, "That's it? That's the dark web?" I go, "Yeah." She walked away. It wasn't nearly as exciting as she thought it was. So one more icebreaker question. Not all of you have to answer this. You don't have any war stories, but what is your favorite pen testing, hacking war story of your own personal experience that you have? Could be an embarrassing one. Could be a victory. I think Jay Gore's ready to go.
Yeah. So working on campus, we see a lot of exotic stuff. We call ourselves a city within the city. And so we've got like power plants, water chilling stations, nuclear facilities. We've got one of the world's largest laser beams. The geology department got a giant 8-foot globe that it was a dual projector setup. It would shoot projections on both sides, and it would make a live map of the globe. And it had different settings where you could see like live weather feeds and stuff. We started poking at it when we saw it, and we ended up finding an exposed USB port where we could plug in just a regular USB keyboard, use some hotkeys to escape the running program, get back to the Windows desktop, and do whatever we wanted with it. As it turned out, it was running as administrator, and so we had full control over it. In the end, to leave our calling card, we just projected our logo, the all-seeing eye, onto the world, and we said, "Hack the planet."
Yeah, a number. Probably my favorite, though, was I was doing a social engineering engagement for a company up in the Northwest. No, it was the Midwest. And they had a warehouse with forklift drivers. They had a standard outfit. Went to the local Goodwill, of course, got something that matched. Walk in, and they're having this employee appreciation like luncheon with cake and everything. And so I just sit there, and I'm eating cake and having a good time. Well, it turns out they also had their newsletter person there who was taking pictures. And the next month, my sponsor sends me a picture on their wall is me at the employee appreciation lunch.
I'll give a epic fail. So I was working, this was years ago, on it was an assessment of a server. It was for a freenet on the East Coast, and they had a set UID bash script, and so I modified it and ended up locking out 5,000 users from this system for about 3 days. So not all war stories are good, but you learn incredible lessons from them. After that, I luckily have never brought down a system since, because I was so basically distraught because I was getting it from everywhere. Sometimes your biggest mistakes are also your best lessons.
Carlito or Allison, haven't been doing it long enough to have a war story? Okay, so next year you have to come back with at least 2, because you have to do 2 to catch up. All right, I got one that really I thought was a victory, but turned out to be a kind of a defeat. We were doing physical pen testing for this company, and they had an office they converted to a server room. It was just an office and their offices were like on the 2nd floor of a building they shared with other tenants. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, the doors open on the sides with no badges. So I'm able to walk up to the door of the server room, and they wouldn't know if I could get into it. And I could push the tiles up and take pictures over. I could do that. I wasn't about to climb over, kill myself and break tiles. I just proved that it was possible to do. But they have it on their door. At the time, the lock on their door was a simplex lock. Maybe Jay Gore knows about those. The 5 buttons that are mechanical, and you can only push one button in any combination. So it really limited the combinations that are possible. I can't remember how many there were total, and you could push 2 at the same time. There was in the hundreds. It was like 200-300 different combinations possible. I took a piece of paper and wrote them down. I didn't even script. I was like old school. I was a terrible pin tester at the time. Horrible pin tester. And this was last year though, so I'm a little better. I'm kidding. No, this is like 2005. So what I did was I took a dry erase marker. That was really clever, and I put a little dot on each button. And then I came back the next day and looked at the ones that were wiped off, and 4 of the buttons were wiped off. So there's only 4 buttons. And the number of combinations were like like under 30. So no one's up there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I put my chair up the door, and I'm starting to go through the combinations. And after about the 4th one, I'm in. And I'm just so proud of myself. I'm just really. I take a picture of myself in the next to the server rack, posing like I had a big fish, posing. And so I turn the report in. They're like, "Oh, thank you. That's really kind of a good. You did a good job." So next year I come back, and they had put a biometric lock on the door, which is pretty cool. I'm leaning against the door, looking at the biometric lock, and the door pushes open a little bit. And I look at the latch, and I see there's a gap there. I take a credit card, pop, I open the door. I thought, great, I got in again. And then wait a minute. This vulnerability was there last year. It's been sitting there a year like that, and that's the way a thief would get in. They wouldn't do the lock buttons. I was going for the sexy thing, and the most glaring vulnerability was right there. I actually felt really bad about that. But it's a lesson I take a lot when I talk to people about overlooking the simple things, the easy things, just to go for something sexy. It's like a guy breaking into a museum using a grappling hook, but the door's open. Like trained, with a grappling hook.
That's a lesson you can learn if you watch Sneakers.
Yeah, you're right. The door with the kicking the door open. Yeah. If you haven't seen Sneakers, add that to your list of films to see. I won't spoil it for you. Everyone dies. So let's see. How did you get involved with InfoSec? And do some of you remember how you got involved?
I think from a mentality perspective, you always are, at least in the red teaming. Always been trying to figure out how to get into things, how to make things do what I want them to do. How I was professionally recognized was military, then law enforcement. That gave credibility where credibility did not exist before. But I think maybe more why I've been able to stay in InfoSec is because I'm childish. The only reason I get in is because security is basically saying, you can't go there and you don't tell me what I can do. So if there's a hallway of open doors and one of them is closed and locked, that's the one I want in. I didn't want to until you closed it and locked it, but now I want in. And I'm not going to do anything. So that's why I've been able to stay in security, is because there's always locked doors.
Yeah. So as Wirefall said, probably always had that mindset. As a kid, you want to be an astronaut or a jet fighter pilot. I wanted to be a hacker. That sounded cool to me. And I ended up going the sysadmin route, so a lot of help desk and then learning how to administer machines. And then finally I noticed there was an opening in the security office at UT. And I forgot to mention earlier, I've been in the security specific role for about 8 years now. And I've been at the university for 10. Yeah, just sysadmin who finally got a shot at a security office.
So I got involved. I was doing medical research at a university in North Carolina, and my coworker was on a computer, and I asked her what she was doing, and she said, "I'm reading Usenet groups." And I'm like, "What the hell's that?" And so she introduced me to it. I started reading Usenet, found tons of info on there, found some groups related to hacking, found Frack Magazine, found bulletin boards, which probably very few of you know what that is, and the glory of a modem connection, but that's where I got started.
So my background's a little bit different. I have a degree in animal science, and I got married, and I had kids, and I became a stay-at-home mom. My husband was a network engineer for a very long time and a sysadmin, and I wanted to understand what he was doing for his job, so I started researching networking, and I started learning more about computers, and as I went into it, I started with a lot of the exploitation, and even I'd had friends have their accounts broken into. I became more interested in cybersecurity, and I managed to I got my NAT Plus, and I got accepted into the Sands Women's Cyber Academy, and that gave me the opportunity to gain the certifications that helped me get my job.
Kind of like her. I started off, it was an unconventional route for me to get to info security. Originally, I just went to college for something that I was basically exposed to. So I played athletics all my life. And so I was like, well, I'll get my undergrad in exercise science. But then on my senior year, I realized this is not something I wanted to do. And I remember being exposed to a little bit of computer engineering side my freshman year. And I decided to pursue that. But while I was actually going for my CS degree, I took security classes as well, and that's what kind of held my interest there. And so thankfully, before I graduated, I was offered an opportunity to work for a company, like doing QA stuff, but I expressed to the manager, like, hey, I want to do security stuff as well. So he also kind of exposed me to security tasks like dynamic static code assessments. And so now I'm finally on a security team, and here I am now.
Well, great. That's really good. So I guess I could tell my story's kind of boring, actually. I was doing IT work. I always been into computers since I was a young kid. I think my first computer was a Texas Instruments TI-94A. Anybody have one of those? Wow. They were classics. Anyway, so yeah, I was playing around with like the peek and poke commands and making the screen do strange things, even from a very young age. And so when I was doing IT work, when an opportunity for security work came along, I got interested in that and got involved with our company's side penetration testing exercises. And at the time, there was very little training available. There was actually no knowledge. And at the time, and this maybe can be our next talking point, the industry was kind of mean. I mean, there weren't a lot of people at that time, 2005, for really sharing information with other people. Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, cool. I think they're all working. Cool. Thanks, Josh. And there wasn't a lot of information on the internet either about security. I mean, you can look up YouTube. You can find anything about anything on YouTube. The IPSec videos, talked about this earlier, the IPSec videos. So
Unless YouTube bans you.
True.
For
Oh,
putting
yeah.
security proof of concepts on there.
There's your war story. Why don't you tell that one?
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I got kicked off of the YouTube platform for a 48-hour period until the InfoSec community raised hell and got me back on. Two of my videos, so my YouTube channel is predominantly me picking my own locks, demonstrating them on a camera, and me showing off the security research that I do, so building proof of concept tools. In this case, two of my videos got flagged. The particular flag, I think the wording was privacy complaint, but I think the objection pretty clearly was that I was showing off how to do this type of attack. And the attack in this case was showing off that those badge readers that are installed on your doors have all sorts of fancy encryption these days from the card to the reader over the air. But then the wire that travels through the wall behind it almost always goes over this old standard called WEGAND, which is completely plain text. You just tap into two wires there and you just read the bits off of it as it's going back to whatever makes a decision. Now you have the full credentials unencrypted of the card. So I demonstrated how to build a little Arduino-based device. So you unscrew a single screw underneath the reader, pull it forward, strip a couple wires, stuff this little Arduino back in there and tap it onto the two wires, and then put it back. And it will sit there and silently grab all the credentials as they go across that wire, and then you come back later and it shoots them off over, in my case, I did a little Zigbee wireless connection, and just say, give me all the creds you got. And now I have legitimate cards. So these, I showed two videos of demonstrating my little Arduino device. They both got flagged. I got a notice from YouTube saying, we're going to do a review because you have multiple privacy complaints against your account. And we're going to determine whether or not we'll remove those videos. I got a notice later that day, around 3 a.m. actually, saying, due to multiple violations or an extreme violation, we have decided to terminate your account. So they didn't even want to remove just the individual videos. They completely shut off my account and said, you're not allowed to create a new account either. You're banned from the YouTube service. I went through the legitimate, what do you call it, the resolution process to say, I think this is a mistake, and I put a pretty lengthy description, the full number of characters they allowed me to type for the description of why I thought this might be a mistake. They might have misunderstood what this was. This is legitimate security research. It's a public exploit, and people need to know about it at this point because it's a risk. And it went to them. Less than 24 hours later, I got a response saying, denied, no further information. I asked, can you give me the specifics as to why you banned me? Which videos in specific went into this decision? And all I got back was denied. So I had exhausted all my options there. I was just kicked off the platform, and I didn't know why. And so I took to Twitter, and I got a lot of friends on Twitter. And a lot of people agreed with me that that didn't make sense. And we got the attention of the YouTube team, and they went and re-reviewed my case and said, oh, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. We've gone ahead and flipped your account back on. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and it's not like there aren't other videos on YouTube of showing how to exploit and how to, yeah, it's ridiculous. So here's another question for you. And by the way, if you have questions or comments, feel free to raise your hand. This is kind of a free form thing. I just got some talking points that we're going to try to cover, but I have no agenda here. So if we don't get to them all, that's fine. I'd rather have a useful discussion than to just get through all my bullet points here. Here's a question for you. We all do pen testing work. There's a lot of services that offer automation of a lot of these types of activities. Can pen testing be fully automated? Can we be replaced by scripts and by appliances? And I'll just anybody want to talk about that?
Penetration testing will be fully automated when code security is fully automated.
Funny enough, that's what I spend a lot of my day job doing now, is automating my own job away. So we used to do this thing we called Hacker Happy Hour, where as a team we would get together, maybe go over to a bar and just go open up Google and poke at all the domains we have dominion over. And as a public university who also does a lot of outreach for the entire state, we have a lot of domains. So it's just an intractably huge web presence. But we want to find that low-hanging fruit, the scariest stuff that's already exposed to Google. And so we would think of clever keywords to search, Google dorking in general, if you're familiar with that. For example, let's say file type PHP in URL ID. So that's probably a numeric ID field on a PHP page. Pretty good chance they did it wrong, and it's vulnerable to SQL injection. So we do that kind of thing by hand, poking at them one at a time. And I started to think, can I automate this process, make it a little bit easier to maybe pop open a bunch of tabs at once so that I can go click on them and look at them one at a time? Yeah, so I started writing a Python script to do that for me. I'm like, at this point, why even it open up in a graphical browser? Why not just punt it to a command line scanner and let it tell me whether or not it's vulnerable? Okay, I got that coded up so I could kick it off and it would run one scan at a time. I was like, okay, can I further automate this? Maybe make a cluster of them and do a bunch of scans at once? Turns out you can. So I ended up writing a little framework that we call DorkBot, where I can pull from multiple sources, like say Google or Bing or whatever, send it to any number of command line security scanners, and I just run it on a Docker cluster now, and it's churning through like thousands of pages an hour and just giving us back vulnerabilities of what it finds everywhere on Google.
Anybody else have any comments or opinions about whether we can be automated away?
Yeah, I don't see it happening anytime soon, just because we have people involved in all the processes. So, yeah, if we have AI that's creating the code and the applications, and everything's encrypted, and there are no passwords, everything's biometric, maybe then. But it's not. I can't see it happening in our lifetimes, or maybe the next.
And whenever innovation stops, then maybe. Because they just keep reintroducing the same vulnerabilities every time we improve. Back in the old days with phone phreaking, they learned with SS7 that in-band signaling is bad. So then we create data networks and we put the management in band. Wireless, same thing. IoT now. As every time they come up with a new revision, we have to make the same mistakes over and over. So.
So phone phreaking, for those of you, some of you out here, we used to use these phones that had buttons on them yeah, the long distance was expensive, and so there were ways of replaying sounds into the phone to skip around the long distance charges, and I never did that myself, but it was something it was done, so I should have a glossary of old terms, I guess, in our talk, I guess. Well, great. So I'm going to change gears a little bit. This is a more useful question. Again, any questions out here so far? Anybody want to? Okay. What do you do personally? And this may be practical for some of you, because all of us, and the reason why I chose this cross section is because there are people here that are new to pen testing, newer, and some of us who've been around for a while. And what I want to understand is, what do we do as pen testers, as hackers or ethical hackers? I don't even know what the terms we use anymore are. What do we do to improve ourselves to train? What are we doing to training? And do you have your own methods or sources for training that you go to? If you could share with us, that'd be great. Let's start.
LASCON.
There you go.
I would say primarily, honestly, is just keeping up with Twitter, which I was a very latecomer. My handle was not available because I was a latecomer. Because I thought there's no way you're going to get content, anything useful in whatever, 120 characters. But it doesn't. But it points to useful information, and almost all of the security peeps are on there now.
So I agree, Twitter is one way just to stay up to date with all the happenings. And for me, since I'm a little bit of a newcomer, at first all the information was overwhelming. It's what do I need to focus on? Because, kind of you need to know everything, but the reality is at the end of the day, you won't know everything. So for me, individual time, so maybe setting aside maybe 1 or 2 hours a day and working through a book on a certain subject, and also because I'm trying to get better at pen testing, pulling up vulnerable VMs on VulnHub. Also, there's Hack the Box as well. So just dedicating time to that.
I'm a huge fan of local meetups. So Austin 2600, a little self-serving because I try to run that one. But we try to play CTFs at the meetings if there are online ones going on. So we'll get together as a group and we'll compete in these CTFs and try out the challenges. I love Austin Hackers, AHA. Going there forces me to come up with new and interesting things just to show off to that group.
He's not kidding with the word forcing either, are you?
It is compulsory. In order to attend the meetings, you have to go give turbo talks. And so a lot of the coolest things I've done have been specifically so I could go up on stage there and show it off at AHA. Longhorn Lockpicking Club. I don't pick locks. I don't practice picking locks outside of the meetings. That is my excuse to keep good at it, is to show up every other Saturday at Spider House and practice picking locks with people. So I love meetup groups.
So I do a lot of different things. So I CTF. I run a CTF team. We're probably one of the biggest in the world at this point. It's called Open to All. And it is open to all. It's actually more of a CTF community than a team. We compete in every single CTF there is that we can get to, including local ones because we have people from all over the world in the group. And we have a Slack channel and probably have about 500 people on there, and it's all education focused. I'm very education focused myself. That's why I am involved with OWASP, and I help coordinate the study groups, which we meet weekly. In fact, we're starting a new book called PowerShell in a Month of Lunches. So any of you who are interested in PowerShell, please come join us. I also believe in going to conferences, and I learn a lot at these, not only because of the great networking, but because some of the great talks. For example, at DerbyCon, I just learned more about the Shadow Broker's dump and something called Kill Suit, which is this awesome framework all about data exfiltration and maintaining persistence. It's some really cool cutting edge stuff, or at least it was cutting edge a couple years ago. But it's new to me. And that's the thing about this field is there's so much to it. There's so much to learn. When I started, there was very little. There was FRAC. That was it. And a couple other things that you could find on bulletin boards and stuff. But now there's a plethora of sources for learning this stuff. And what I think you realize over time is you have this huge possibility of a foundation in hacking and pen testing and red teaming. And there's these little bricks that you can build as you go along. And if you just focus on those and sort of find something that works for you, whether it's a meetup or a book or a webinar or a conference or a training, and trainings are great too, unless you fidget a lot like I do. Although I do go to them, I figure I get 50% out of them. But there's a lot of options, and I like to go into all of them personally.
As Allison mentioned, things like Hack the Box and damn web apps and such, I love hands-on learning, and I think part of it is going to be what type of learner are you? Do you learn better by listening to people talk, watching videos, doing hands-on things? And then as a result, there are so many resources out there for you to be able to then use that to learn the area that you're interested in.
I'm the same way with the hands-on. If I go to a training and there's not much lab, I don't retain a lot out of that training. I might go back to the slides later and go back and get some things out of it, but just sitting there listening to somebody else lecture to me, regardless of how smart the person is, I need to get my hands dirty and get in there and do it. How many people are here local from Austin? Raise your hand from Austin. None of you have an excuse for a need for opportunities. And maybe you don't know about them, but because we have some amazing opportunities in Austin for training. We have OWASP, we have the OWASP study group, we already mentioned that. We occasionally meet, we used to meet on Wednesday nights to do some some CTF stuff, and it was a lot of fun. So if you're in Austin and you want to know, what's out there, come to talk to us, one of us, and find out, because there's a ton of things. This is probably the most active cities in the United States with regards to security groups, conferences. We have LASCON, we have InfoSec Southwest, we have, and Matt up here heads up B-Sides coming up this next year. There's a lot of opportunities here in Austin to get involved, and if you're not, and you know about it, you don't have an excuse. But if you don't know about it, come talk to us.
For cons, I will give you that. You beat Dallas. For happenings, I'll challenge you.
All right, great. Our first fight. Great. Yeah. Anybody else have anything about training? Talk about. I like Hack the Box. That's a really good resource. And there's a lot of things available out there. There's Pentesters Academy. There's some things for cost and some things that are free. Related to this next question, and this might cause hopefully some lively discussion. Certifications. How many people are at least pursuing certifications out here? Raise your hand. Everyone always is, it seems like, right? We're always looking at the next one, right? Our manager always saying, well, what's your plan for next year for a certification? So how important are they? What's the value? Is there a value in certifications? And I'm hopefully going to get some differing opinions here from this panel, but maybe not.
I would say it's mostly where you are in your career, or if you're trying to pivot or make a change. I got my CISSP, and I think it was 2000. I'm here for CPEs. No, because I'll never take that test again. Oh, awesome. You get a CPE. You get a CPE. Because after that, though, I absolutely love the training from offensive security. Their OSCP, OSCE, took those. But to get the certification, you have to write a report. That's what I do for a living. So I'll take all these trainings, but I no longer go after the certifications because I really don't need to where I am.
I do think that, as you said, it depends on where you are in your career. For me, being a career changer, having certifications is extremely helpful when I don't have the years of experience to show a prospective employer.
I agree with both of them. I think the other thing that a certification is good for is that it can motivate you to study a topic and get some more depth in an area. So like CISSP, it's a certification that a lot of people talk about not being very technical. And after having gone through that process, it isn't super technical because the breadth of information you cover is huge. But it is definitely worthwhile because the breadth is so huge. It introduces you to a lot of stuff. But from a technical perspective, it doesn't give you much to go on. Whereas, OSCP or OSCE, those Those are fantastic to really get down into the nitty gritty and learn how to really do something. And like they said, it's great for careers. And even some of the certs that a lot of people make fun of are good for opening doors. But I
Could you name one of those?
No, I don't want to say. But I do think that it's a great way to motivate yourself. So if you set a goal, and especially if you, because most of them aren't cheap. I mean, OSCP is cheap. It's fantastic and it's inexpensive, but a lot of these certs are not cheap. So if you set a goal, you set a date, you buy the test, you're going to study for it, unless you like burning money, which you meet me at the bar later.
On the OSCP, I just want to say that I think offensive security as an organization, probably with all the extensions I bought on labs, because I'm a terrible test taker, horrible. I freak out on tests. But all the extensions I bought, there's probably some brick at the offensive security offices with my name engraved on it as a contributor, because I don't even think about how much money I spent. It had to be at least a couple $1,000 in extensions alone on that exam. So. So Allison's studying for her OSCP. I'm just asking, you find it rewarding? Are you learning a lot from it? And as an example of,
I will say I do find it rewarding because, kind of like what I mentioned before, the InfoSec field is so like massive, and it's really hard for me at least to be focused on one thing. So it's nice to have kind of a roadmap of like how I need to go forward and learn certain things. So I think it's helpful that way, and also it's challenging. So I'm always trying harder. Sure.
I like structure too. I mean, if I want to study a subject, then one of the best way to do it, to Matt's point, is to dedicate yourself to actually taking the exam. It's like if you want to learn a topic, another thing you can do is commit to teaching it at a conference or something. Or I'm going to do a conference on this in 6 months, and I don't know about it yet. So you got to learn, or you don't look bad. It'd be really horrible. I've had live experiences like that. So no. Cool. So what about, I mentioned certifications. How about, I just kind of in general though, if you were interviewing somebody for a job, and I'm not like your boss or anything like that, how much weight would you put in their list of certifications over, let's say, that, for example, their people skills? That's kind of a hard question, I guess, but is there any point where technical skills basically would cause you to just ignore the soft skills issues?
Completely. I really only have 2 questions that I start out with always. The first one is, tell me about your home lab. And if they're excited about it, if they're passionate about this industry, they will have a home lab and they will be very happy to tell you about it. It could just be their laptop. It doesn't have to be anything like my 42U rack server, because I have a very wonderful wife. But
What are your cooling goals like?
we got 2 air conditioners. They run full time. And the second is, tell me about your participation in the local security community, because that's what drives. They're passionate. If you're here, the advice I give people trying to break into the industry is one, you got to tinker around, get yourself a home lab. And the second is, you're not going to get your job off of the job board. You're going to get it here. You're going to get it at AHA. Well, I don't know about AHA. But you're going to get it at 2600 or...
You asked me about job, if I don't agree.
Yeah.
Recruiting means finding
And DHA was a spinoff of AHA. I actually was exposed to it many years here when I was working for a state agency. And I absolutely love the format. It's not just a talking head for an hour and a half. It's just getting up those fire talks. But even though we call ourselves a kinder, gentler AHA, and Mobhead will say that that's impossible. But no, those are the 2 things that are important. I don't care about certifications. That may get you through HR so that you actually see me. So I'm not saying it's not important, but that's not going to be part of my questions.
Anyone else? So another question that hopefully will spur some conversation here. This term goes back many, many years, and I want to ask ourselves a question. Are we script kiddies? Honestly, I mean, thinking about the term in classical definition, and which means basically a script kiddie was somebody who just simply grabbed scripts from somewhere else, ran them against things, and attempted to exploit something. They didn't really care how it worked. They were just trying to get results back. How much of a script kiddie are we today as pen testers? And is that a bad thing?
I would say we're framework kiddies, because now we have frameworks instead of just the scripts. But I was a Perl script kiddie, and honestly, at first, yes, you have an objective. You're just trying to get something to do what you want. I don't care how it works. But back then, it wouldn't work. It didn't work. So now you have to understand it because you have to fix it to make it work. And I think there's less and less of that with the frameworks. Now most of them just do work, and so there is a lot more of that.
Teaching in classes in this now, I'm having to think a lot more about this, being responsible for the next generation of people who will be doing this. And I really like the approach of us starting out learning the attacks manually. I'll use the example SQL injection because I'm going to be teaching that on Monday. We're going to spend the majority of the lecture doing every single bit of it by hand in a browser. And then at the very end, I'm going to say, oh, by the way, there's also SQL map, and it'll do all this for you, and you'll probably never do it by hand again until you run into something really interesting. But what makes a good pen tester is when they hit that really interesting thing that the framework fails at, they know how to drop down to the command line and do it manually in Netcat or something. And I think it's really powerful to start off learning those foundations before you get introduced to the frameworks.
Yeah, I think the idea of script kiddie to guru, that whole continuum, is something that we all are based on the topic and what we're trying to do and so forth, and time and circumstances. Because if I can find a POC for the new struts vulnerability, I'm not going to write it from scratch. I'm going to pull it off of GitHub and use that. So, and that's a very script kiddie kind of thing to do. But the knowledge to know what to use and how to use it, how to apply it, and what happens when you apply it, and what the ramifications are, like locking thousands of users out of a server or whatever, that's sort of a more further down the continuum. So I think we vacillate back and forth depending on what it is.
To continue with that, I mean, I feel like while we may be somewhat more dependent on frameworks and tools, you still need to have an understanding of what the tool is doing and why is this expectation happening. Because at the end of doing a pen test, you have to write a report and you have to explain to your client, why is this happening? How do you remediate that? And that goes beyond just running a tool.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said. Also, just working with app teams, I mean, just being able to throw a script at it, it's not going to help them, as you guys said, like show them where the issue is, how I was able to exploit something, and also educate them on how to avoid it and how to remediate in that certain situation. So.
It's good. I think, personally, I think script kiddie, or scritty, I guess you call it scritty now, right? It's more of an issue of an attitude, I think, also, than it is a level of knowledge. Because like it's been pointed out, none of us are gurus in everything. And actually, if you think about things we're gurus in, you always meet somebody along the line who's more of a guru, and you get knocked down a few steps and you realize, you still have something to learn. I took a class at our study group on, it was basic Kali Linux pen testing, it was something like that. Remember the book we had? And I learned a ton of things from that book because I'm kind of an idiot. Also, but there were things that, I learned, I've been doing it this way. Oh, you can do it that way. That's a lot easier. I've never done it that way before because I'm a creature of habit. I've been doing it this way. And I think we're all script kiddies on certain levels. And that's not a bad thing. But I think the difference being is that we desire not just to know, to use a tool, but also know how it works. And to know other ways. Well, if you're talking about the Hack the Box, the IPSEC videos, if you look for them on YouTube, they're IPSEC, I think it's IPP-SEC. And he walks through these vulnerable systems that have been retired on Hack the Box. And what I like about him is that he tries, you want to run a Metasploit. I know people that fire Metasploit at everything, I knew someone who fired a Metasploit module, it was a Windows module at a Linux box, just to see what happened. Just mindlessly shooting, But he actually goes to Metasploit last scenario. It's like that's the last thing he wants to do. He does manual testing first, before he does Metasploit. And you learn a ton of things that way that you didn't really know before. But I think we're all, I think probably for some of us, the three words we have trouble saying the most is I don't know. Because we think it makes us weak, right? It's how we learn though, right? It's how we learn from others. I don't know, you know. And somebody asked me about the panel, what if I don't know something? If I'm up here and I don't know something, well, I don't know, you know. That's a good thing to say. Kind of along those lines too, I guess last thing, are there any questions, by the way? Any questions for the panel? Anybody wanting to get into pen testing? Yes, come on.
What are your approaches to using your offensive skills to fix things, or is that even on your mind?
I can kind of broach that. Being on Red Team, we work really closely with our defense team. I'm not sure if this is the way we're going with this. I consider us to be kind of like almost like an arm of the defense team. If we find something, you know, we'll do these simulations. We'll try to get in and try to get around them, you know, and we always report out on what we did. But occasionally we'll find something and we'll just go directly to them and say, hey guys, this is a problem. Because when they look bad, we look bad. Because if someone gets into our network, you know, sure, they're the ones that brunt the first wave of shame and, you know, but then it comes back to us and they ask us, why didn't you find that before the other guys did as a Red Team? So it's kind of like, so it's up to us to keep our defensive team strong, you know, and it works both ways, I guess. But I consider us to be kind of like servants of the blue team more than just our own little cell of Red Team all-stars, you know, which a lot of people have that kind of attitude. But we're there to make the company stronger and better. So.
I do a lot of teaching just in all of the activities that I do, not just proper getting paid for teaching, but running Longhorn lockpicking and stuff. And being a Red Teamer feels to me like just being a teacher. You're finding all this cool stuff and that's fun, but then at the end you get to explain these concepts to the developers who have to fix it. So it's fun to explain at a high level what SQL injection is and see the aha moment in the developer as they realize it and then are set off into the world to develop more secure code.
Yeah.
I would like to reiterate that we are not attackers. We are defenders that use a subset of attacker methodologies, but we are defenders.
So before, any more questions? That was a good question. I just want to, is there any word of advice to the community you want to give us as maybe someone who's out here who's thinking about this career line? Is there any word of advice you want to give to them that might help them along? Some word of advice?
I would say, for me, Austin has, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Austin has an awesome, an awesome security community. Like, as a newbie, I felt like everyone embraced me. If I had any questions, no one hesitated to help me out. As long as you're doing your due diligence, I mean, I don't think anyone wants to hold anyone's hand, but they lead you to the water, so.
Of course, we're telling her all the wrong things, see what happens, you know, be kind of funny later. Anybody else?
I'm going to reiterate my meetups advocation. Go to the awesome meetups that are here in Austin, and I'm going to specifically call out Austin Hackers. It is, I know it sounds really intimidating that you have to get up on stage to go there, but it is an accommodating group. I think they respond to the level of nervousness you have. I'm a very nervous person, and if I can do it, then I think anyone can. But it is extremely rewarding just to sit in the room with the type of talent that's there and see the kind of things they're working on, and then to get advice from them, just to chat with them at the meeting. You should definitely check out AHA.
And he's, I think, underplaying, though, it is intimidating. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and it intimidates the hell out of me. They're great, though. Definitely go. But expect to be intimidated. And that's just, it's a hazing. It's a ritual. It's a rite. It's just, and then you're never going to have stronger bonds, though, than after you've gone through that. My advice would be nothing to do with being security specific. It's something I read recently of a study done on people changing careers. It was specifically for entrepreneurs, and the follow-up was, what is your biggest regret after making that choice? And it was consistently that I didn't do it sooner.
I would add that if you are going to be in this field, You need to develop in yourself curiosity and a love of learning. If you do those two things and you are always striving to continually learn, you're going to be very happy. If you don't love doing that, you're not going to be happy, because this is not a field where you can learn this amount and then you're done. So you always have to be learning. So develop that. I would also say, because Austin is such a vibrant, active community for information security, reach out to people, talk to people. Everyone on this panel, I think, except for David, is an introvert. So we aren't, but we're here.
I thought you were
because
going to say idiot, but I'll take that.
we're here because we want to help, and that's the thing about the information security community is everyone wants everyone else to be successful. So reach out to people who you normally wouldn't reach out to and say, hey, how do you do this? How could I learn more? Do you have any advice for me? Because we all want you to be successful. And I guess the last thing, and I don't mean to hog the mic here,
You're good.
but I am curious, how many people here like CTF? Raise your hand. I can barely see people, but how many people play Hack the Box? Okay, fewer. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. And then how many of you guys go to events outside of a conference, like a meetup or a user group or OWASP? Or awesome, fantastic. So keep doing that. Just do more of it.
Those of you who are preparing for the OSCP are thinking about it. I was going to say this: the Hack the Box is a great free way to get better prepared for that, because there's a lot of similarities between the boxes in that system and the ones in the OSCP environment. But I guess my advice would be also that I remember Dave Kennedy once tweeted, and I had it saved somewhere. Thought about framing it actually, but one of the lines was, "To those of us who are a forever newbie." And that was how he started off the line, and that was his thing. We need to be forever newbies. Anytime we think we've arrived anywhere, we think we've gotten to a place where we're experts and we can stop learning, that's the point we stop growing. And the way you remind yourself of the fact that you're not there is to surround yourself with people who are, in my opinion, way smarter than I am, and you're learning from them constantly. My motto, I've got a little motto that I came up with, and I don't know if it's original or not, but it's do good things and put them where people can see them. You don't have to shout it out on the housetop, look what I've done. You don't have to do good things, contribute, and learn from others, to learn from the community, because it's the most embracing community. Like I said, it used to be kind of jerks. I mean, we did used to be kind of jerks, and now we're bringing in new people. We're trying to bring them up and train them. We're learning from them, as a matter of fact, too. I learn tons of things from people that are new to security. They come from like application development, backgrounds, and so just remember, we're always learning, and we're a community here. So if you have questions, if you want to know something, reach out to one of us.
I would follow that up with when you surround yourselves by all of these incredibly talented people and come here with something we didn't cover, but you will feel imposter syndrome. But just know that we do too. I've been doing this for decades.
How many have that? Imposter syndrome? How many of you wake up in the morning and say, what am I doing? I'm a complete fraud. What am I doing in this field? Come on. Some of you are liars. That's okay. You're liars. What? See, the reason why I had this panel, I've never been on a panel before. I've never been asked to be on a panel, so I just made my own. They tried to vote me out earlier. It's my panel. So, we got a couple more questions for questions. Any questions at all, please? We've got a lot of people up here, not me, but a lot of people besides me that can answer questions really well. Anybody? Come, one more question. You have a question? This is my daughter. She's my like ringer here. How did you get to be so incredibly intelligent, Daddy?
Okay, how are you so good at hacking? No. Where do you, start? Because I don't know a lot about computers, and it seems just, the whole thing just seems completely overwhelming. Where do you start? Do you start with code? Do you start with, what are the wires in there doing? I don't know anything about this. I can't emphasize that enough. So what's, a good place to begin learning about this?
I would say that wherever you're interested. The thing is hacking doesn't mean computers. And we take a very liberal view at Dallas Hackers Association. We've had talks about hacking your metabolism. We've had talks about piracy, which you would expect, but it was not that kind of piracy. It was about our piracy. Talking about the difference in communication strategies between Somalian and Indonesian pirates. I'll never use that information, but it was a really cool talk. And this person was passionate about it. They found an interest. That's what hacking is finding your passion and making things do what you want them to do, not necessarily what they were intended
That's
to do.
a question which someone asked earlier because we're out of time. I want to thank my panel, though, for everybody who came up and joined us here. They provided a lot of good information. Feel free to ping one of us at the end of the talk if you have questions concerning what we talked about or anything regarding what's going on here in Austin or in the hacking community. So thank you very much. Thank you.